So, okay, I will hold this. Where do I speak? Okay, bless you. Okay. Hi everyone, my name is Michelle, and welcome to my exhibition with Donald Judd. And so, Donald Judd is an artist from Missouri, and he started off his career as an art critic. So a lot of his artworks are inspired by the artist that he's been critiquing. He developed his own style. And from the process of research that I did for his exhibition, I took one part of the book, on this book that I particularly used for his exhibition, and it was a exhibition that he did in Texas called Sense of Sight. So that Sense of Sight exhibition was a really good reference for me to start off this project, because he was really utilizing the space that he had that became his permanent showcase, and the material that he used to build his artworks, and also creating what would be called in his book a modular design experience. So even if we duplicate the same style within the same distance, it's not going to feel like it's filling up the space, but it's more of actually working with the space that it has. It has a sense, it connects with the artwork it's in the room. So going by the sense of sight, after weeks of revising and also learning what could be a main interesting aspect of this work that I could take out and extract it into an exhibition, I realized that he talks a lot about void and volume in his exhibitions. A lot of the times where he would collaborate, and especially he did one with Pasadena Art Museum here, and also he showcased his work at MoMA. It really does mention that he has a passion to work his design with void and volume. So when he started to do his own artwork, he started off with a painting that's displayed on this poster. So he started doing paintings, and soon after he learned about industrial fabrication. He used a lot of materials the way it is, like he doesn't really change that much. So he used that, and he created his own designs, which really became the inspiration for the title wall for the brand identity system, because he used grids as part of his workflow to build that. And what was interesting was his grid style is very different from the way us designers would think, because he really relies on how the dimensions of the materials are. And so learning that, we also learn how to use grids. I really took upon myself to mathematically think of a way or a grid system that works for the title wall, and also applicating it on all different media applications. So looking at the book, like you can definitely see there is different colors, which is not mainly what he wanted to do, because later on, after he did like the stacking method for most of his artworks, he went back to really just enhancing the natural colors of the materials that he used. So I choose a monochromatic theme for his exhibition just because that's where he started. He started sketching it, and basically when we sketch, we use black ink on white paper. And a lot of the parts of this book that helped me to think of a system was, there was some sketches that, like any other, and this was one of the inspiration where he had like brackets to actually mimic one of his designs that was in the MoMA display. And I took the lines and actually think of a way to expand besides just like the title wall being a grid. Like, why not we make it into a system where the grid also expands, but we still keep the same proportions and constraints within like the title wall and the details that it's in the exhibition. So I will take you on a tour of how the exhibition will feel. So the main idea of this poster series is to actually give an experience where you start to understand what modular design is based on what Donald Judd thinks. And he's really learning. After 14 weeks, he is a bit of a hypocrite. So he hates the fact that most artists would do move A, move B, but he's doing the same thing, but he's just rewording it in a different way. So this is one of the works that he did, and he has tons of it in his book, and so like I use that as part of just like expanding the wall. So how the wall interacts is like when you have one person, then the title wall should be able to detect one person, so it delivers one title. And then when it has multiple people in front, it detects multiple titles. But ideally, learning on how, because I've been through museums and how fast people would walk, the pace is really fast. So I noticed that if you see one person walking in front of the title, the tendencies are people are going to start following them, but they don't really stand still until a certain amount of people are in front. So what I did after 2 weeks of revising this was to actually hold it on the last part that has multiple title, because I noticed like once we have that attention from the viewers, they're going to stand still and see whatever happens, and then they start walking to the exhibition. So this would be the floor plan for the interactive wall. And it's just learning like how the grid would build up from just a single line to a multiple system of grids. This was one of my learning curve this term, to actually learn how to use grids, because this really affected how I worked on my other class. So that was also interesting. And talking about the brochure, oh, is it okay if I turn on the lights? Yeah, that's enough. So because we're talking about industrial fabrication and we're talking about different materials, I realized that a lot of his materials was Plinoflex, and also he used a lot of stainless steel, aluminum. So I wanted to mimic that feel to the brochure, so it really does feel like you're a part of his progress, you're seeing his work without, meeting him. So the way that this brochure works is that taking the inspiration, he does modular design. We could open it and read it this way, or you can open it as a brochure. And this brochure also acts as a poster, because I know, thinking about how people get their posters, or they get their brochure, usually they would just keep it the way it is, but this brochure acts as an artwork. This is one of the sketches that he did. So in case, let's say, a person really does like his work, and they could always put it in the wall as an inspiration. So I wanted to enhance this idea to the other parts of the collaterals for this identity. So also, because of the material doesn't really take ink, so when you hold it, there's still a little bit of residue, which is similar to like the experience of learning how to build these works that he did. And within the same grid system, I used to create the tickets, the stickers, and the acrylic cutouts are one of the attempts to mimic that Plinoflex feel. So it's like you're going to his exhibition, you're getting something out of it to remember him by, because I think even though he's a really, really nitpicky art critique, he does have a point, and he does mention like art is not art if it's not mentioned as an art. So he has a lot of controversial quotes that I had to pick specifically for this exhibition. So I did put it on the brochure for everyone to read later. So now, after going through it and considering like what the t-shirts and the tote bags would look, I do see his potential more on like the materials that I could extract it as a collateral versus the obvious collateral. That's what, like, after finishing everything, I see that there's potential. But overall, this project really pushed me to my limits to think about doing cultural identity versus corporate, which is like what we learn in graphics, but then we have to do a cultural which is more flexible, and there's going to be a lot of trial and errors. And I feel like I think so far I'm doing a good job, because I could definitely see potentials when I was expanding it. So yeah, thank you so much for coming to our exhibition. Thank you.
You had a really good balance of, I think, you did a lot of research, and I think your project's come a long way, like finding that balance and also pushing your concept forward. And I mean, I learned some new things about him as an artist today during the presentation, but you've done a great job, really.
Yeah.
Over the week.
Thank you. Anything else? Yeah. So he's really that type of artist. He's just like any one of us. He would have his sketchbook. He'll have his paper where he orders materials. He does a lot of trial and errors. But at the end, he also plays a lot with philosophically when building his work. He would have a very compelling story with just a very, predictable move on his design, which was really interesting. So that was like one of those things that I didn't want to get to it because I know I have to focus, and I wanted to focus on just how he builds his work, because there was a potential to go into that aspect, but it would be too much for this exhibition.
Is there a reason why you chose that typeface?
So the typeface that I chose for this and all of the system is Articulate CF, and it has a lot of weights. And it took us 3 weeks when I had to